Welcome to the Multiverse, a place where science and myth, magic, and occasionally a little bit of mayhem tend to meet and converge in our various streams of reality. My name's Ken Wells, and I'm here with my co-host, Carolyn Ford. You know, we just kind of got done talking about truth and multiverse, and so I always find it, this is a stat I'm going to have to look up, but I always find it interesting when I go to look at, I'm very curious, how many people believe in aliens? How many people believe in angels? And it's actually the same, right? I don't think they're the same people, but about 80% of people, tend to believe in aliens and tend to believe in angels. And so it always fascinated that there's a crossover. Now, the one I'm going to have to look up is what I want to kind of talk about today is Sasquatch, right? Bigfoot. I have to figure out how many Bigfooters are really, out there. And I also happen to know that you have a very interesting take on the Sasquatch, and I think it would be really interesting to share that story if you're open to it.
Sure. What I feel would be good is, do you have like a paragraph of language for us about what's common knowledge about Sasquatch?
Common knowledge. So my common knowledge would be everything I've seen on the TV and read on the internet. Well, because I grew up in a very small Northern California town. That's kind of Bigfoot country.
Did people have sightings there?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you grew up in a Bigfoot country.
In Washington State.
Exactly.
Everybody who hikes has stories there.
Exactly.
Everybody.
So it's there's a component of urban myth, but I think the standard answer to that would probably be that it's a undiscovered species that has relatively low numbers and very secretive, right? Very shy. But it is some kind of known mammal that's just escaped Darwin, escaped Lewis and Clark, escaped all the good explorers. So one thing I've always believed, because I'm a believer, right? But one thing I've always had a hard time with is where are the remains?
They escaped our dimension too.
And so there you go. Please tell us. Right? Fix my paragraph. Fix my paragraph.
I've got red ink right here
with that information, because I think that's information people would see a big hairy creature, or there's a brute. I want to say there's a Bruder film, but that's JFK's assassination, I think. The film from the Northwest, and fill us in, because they wouldn't think of an animal like that or a being like that as multidimensional.
Interesting. Well, that's just the mystery of this world,
right.
For us to think that we are just the only ones here, and just if I can see it with my hand, it's true. How many times were you told, believe half of what you see and none of what you're told? Or I don't remember. There's something like our parents would tell us things
Absolutely.
Like that, right? And where did they get that? I bet their parents told them too,
Yeah.
And where did that come from?
The days of the old flim flam man, right?
Right. Snake oil.
Snake oil, trying to sell you on the latest concoction.
Yeah. Weight loss with
absolutely.
But okay, so let's talk about this. So, where do I begin? Well, at first I just want to, give a little preliminary myself too. Growing up in the Northwest, being very outdoor, I spent a lot of time hiking. An Olympic National Forest is where a lot of sightings were. And I mean, I can list you at least 5. It's always guys, because they're the ones that go out by themselves, way out there, telling stories. But again, you can hear now on talk shows and Ancient Aliens, or whatever. I don't know if they do that on Ancient Aliens, but on
I'm sure it's an episode that's coming soon. They've hit every other kind of thing. So,
but there's always the debate: where are they? Someone wants to shoot one so that us humans can then, go, okay, there it is. We see it. It's real. We can identify it. Now, you see, part of human belief system is identifying. If you can identify it, then it's real.
Right.
Right. So they have a hard time identifying it, and there's footage, and so then there's a lot of doubt placed in that, whether it's misinformation, and there's always that, so that we can always remain doubtful. But my experience is this. I didn't see any out hiking, but I know so many people that have no reason to be lying and have told me their stories.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% don't doubt them. But when I was traveling, I was in Barcelona, Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and we were staying on top of, right on the, in a part of the city where there was a big hill and a big, almost like a castle next to us.
Uh-huh.
And it was probably the tallest hill in the area. So I'm dreaming in this space,
Uh-huh.
and I do have an experience when I travel to different countries. My dreams change because you are in different fields,
Yeah.
different places of bundles of consciousness,
Yeah.
where you identify differently. So I was in this space, and my dreams have always been very lucid,
Uh-huh.
and they've been real for me. I mean, I have books about my dreams.
Right. Full of color, action,
color, real
dimension,
time,
3D.
traveling,
Yeah.
going to people and talking to them, and the next day they call me and say, "Oh, how did you know?"
So somewhere between just lucid dreaming and actual astral travels.
Yeah, right. There's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So this particular evening, my dream was, I'm in Barcelona, Spain. I'm in Spain for the first time in my life. I'm in Barcelona. I loved it there, and I'm staying with a family that, a friend of mine, that's like third generation living in this complex. And the dream comes, and it's, in that part of the world, it was a Yeti, which is, there's the abominable snowman in the Himalayas, in Spain, and in those areas it's more Yeti. The Northwest and California and in the U.S. it's more Sasquatch, but it's all the same.
Yeah.
And so came to me in this dream and said, "We've been waiting for you." And this Sasquatch / Yeti identified himself as the king of the fairies.
See, that's beautiful.
And they popped right through the dimensional field. They identified, it was made clear to me, not in language, but in experience, that we are multi-dimensional. And then they made a whole pathway. All these fairies came, and they just sprinkled rose petals all along the pathway for me to walk into a space they were inviting me into that night. But the thing that was very significant to me is, welcome back.
Yeah.
They had known me, but I was in another part of the world, so they weren't seeing me yet. But when I came to their arena, they were, welcome back.
Yeah.
I'm the king of the fairies. We are multi-dimensional people. The fairies, too, used to be more prevalent in our world. And now they're not really seen so much. So did they leave, or did we lose our ability?
Yeah, I think we left them.
Yeah,
I think, right? Did they
right.
leave us, or did we leave them?
Well,
I
because
think
we left them, they left us.
Absolutely.
That's the thing is, I've had that experience with more than one type of, let's say, supernatural experience. And when I arrive there, they show up. And then when my life changes and I'm not in their geometry anymore, they go away. So the thing is, I think it's like a quantum story, right? It's like, if we're there and we're available, they're there.
Yeah.
And that's how you know sometimes how you're doing in your world. I don't think that we really lose our ability. I have a lot of friends that go, "Oh, I can't do this or I'll lose my abilities."
Yeah.
You can abandon yourself and your abilities through different lifestyle experiences or life experiences, right?
Yeah.
But I think we can usually find our way back don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love the multidimensional aspect of Sasquatch because it answers so many questions. It's very so in my mind, my freak mind. What right? It's my design. What I equate that to is ET, right? You have a lot of people that have, and so as you're realizing, right, this isn't an extended episode of Finding Bigfoot, right? Those people would throw up all over this idea, but so many people have had the experience of a Yeti or a Sasquatch. So many people have had the experience of extraterrestrial or non-human contact, and yet, Yeti carcasses elude us. There's no alien carcass that's been public or spaceship. I mean, Roswell and
That's
all
been
well and
public,
good,
yeah.
but I mean, somebody holding a piece of aluminum foil and a hat doesn't really get it. So it's just there's as we were talking about earlier, to make it real, right? There's nothing that would suggest that either of those things are a part of our reality, right? And so our dimension. So in the multiverse, those things are now possible.
Right.
And in fact, more than possible, they're actually highly likely. But you have to have that frame of mind. You have to be open to that frame of mind.
So, can I interrupt?
Yeah,
so,
you can always
as
interrupt.
we've been trained and conditioned, like our last conversation, we've been conditioned for a long time in the way our institutionalized schooling trains us to think and perceive.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been dumbed down unconditionally.
Absolutely. Dumbed down to the point where they can control you with the right information. So it's almost like the magic trick of look what I'm doing with my left hand,
Right.
but the right hand doesn't exist.
Right. Right.
And so in terms of Sasquatch and ETs, they've trained us to say, well, if it's real, it would be here, so it's not real, or it's a government conspiracy.
And the thing is, I'm sorry.
No, it's. I mean, that's it. And so
Right.
they don't allow us to presuppose a multidimensional answer
Right.
or a multiverse answer. It has to be their answer A or answer B. Mm-hmm. Have your choice. Free will. The illusion of freedom of choice. The illusion of free will.
So disinformation. There's always those who present disinformation so that you have an out.
Yeah.
So your mind goes, oh, I don't have to believe in that because that's, and they always go, oh, no, it's just fake and they're making it up and it's like, fake news or something.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's making it up so you don't have to believe in it and this is all. And so then you can go and follow your pictures now.
Yeah.
Because it's not real.
Yeah. Or
they're all crazy, or they all live in Sedona.
Yeah, exactly.
or some other city.
Or some other city that starts with an S. Yeah. So it almost gets to the point of we're sleepwalking.
Right.
I truly believe we're sleepwalking, and
Absolutely.
so if we were aware, the elementals would be there. The fairies,
Absolutely.
the leprechauns,
Right.
the little people, they'd be there.
Right.
We'd be able to, shake a Squatch's hand.
Right.
I think we are conditioned to just be asleep.
I would just completely agree with you, but I wonder too now, because the Wi-Fi and the frequency,
don't get
and
me
then
started.
you can get into all the stories of how
yeah.
all the frequencies being controlled, and that's another station
Yeah.
or another podcast. But
Absolutely.
but all of that has changed the ability of certain things to be here, I believe.
To manifest. You're
Right,
absolutely right. There's a sea.
Yeah.
We don't realize that we live in a split pea soup of electromagnetic garbage.
Right.
It's garbage. And the problem is we're electrochemical beings, right? Our heart is beating because we have electrical impulses that are being transferred and moved around, and yet we swim in this crud. every day, right? Even in Sedona. And so, it's yeah, I mean, even every house, I would be surprised if I would walk into a house that didn't have its own Wi-Fi, right?
Right.
I'd shocked to find, I think there were 16 billion cell phones sold last year.
Right.
Same thing with your cell phone. It's wireless. The houses. I'm just going to go on for a little bit because the houses, you're wired with 60 hertz all through your houses. Walk around with a electromagnetic field meter, and you will see readings. Your refrigerator, your computer screen, your television, your electric blanket, almost everything we surround ourselves, and that's not even counting the satellites, or the cell towers,
Right.
or the microwave shots, or I mean, it's just, and so you know who left who.
Exactly. But do you ever see how many names are there when you see Wi-Fi is available?
Oh yeah,
Right? Like
right.
there's like 10.
Right.
Well, I don't know, depending on where you live, but everybody's Wi-Fi is
Yeah.
in your bedroom.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you've got power lines that are, the potential and the current through those sending these huge fields. When we drove through in August, we made a trip from Santa Fe to Pismo Beach. We stopped by and saw you in Sedona,
Right.
and so on our way through the Central Valley of California. Right. I mean, there's numerous problems with the Central Valley, with everything that's going on, but that's where a majority of the fruit and vegetables. And so we're driving through. I forget the names of the town, but it's through South Central Valley, on the way to Pismo Beach, and here are all these orchards, and I look up, and through these orchards are these immense power lines, just almost hundreds of them running
Through
with
the
these orchards, and that's getting into our food,
Right.
right? All those vibrations, and it's at a cellular level.
Right.
Go back to Royal Raymond Rife. That's a
Right.
great one to look up for people,
Yeah.
right? He first discovered the connection between electromagnetic vibration and the ability to either cause or cure cancer.
And what happened to him?
The medical association, AMA, destroyed him.
Right.
He was penniless when he died, but he was the one that first. It's an interesting story. Just real briefly, his microscope that he created, the universal microscope. What he was trying to do was to see bacteria in living tissue, and so that was kind of hard in that day. And he was using all kinds of different lighting techniques to try and be able to see that through his microscope. And what he found was that different lights seemed to have a different effect on the bacteria. And so he finished his microscope, but he investigated that. What is that? And it wasn't just light. It actually turned out to be frequency. And so then he started to play with frequency and discover that some of these cells, bacteria, and specifically a couple of different kinds of cancer, he could actually stimulate their growth, or he could halt it and destroy the cell itself. So his first test, he took, I don't know, I forget the number exactly, 10 terminally ill cancer patients, and cured them all. And that was just not to be had. And so his work was basically destroyed. There's a small cult of people that do it. But I think the point you draw from that is we are electrochemical beings. We are affected by this, whether you want to hear about it or not. And it's everywhere. And so painting the multiverse picture, right, back to the the fairies and the elves and the leprechauns and little people and the Sasquatch. They can't live in this. They can't live in it, and they will come through. But we are just blinded. We're blind. We have antennas all throughout our being where we can tap into global consciousness, Akashic records, streams of thought, group. We can tap into all that on a very subtle level. It's almost impossible unless you're not severely, but well trained now, because you've got to wade through all this, FM, AM, CB, Wi-Fi, cellular.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
as we are evolving and we are moving into new dimensional expression, let's say we, pretty much made it to the fifth dimensional frequency. Is that in your awareness? Then did we leave behind the fairy? Maybe they don't resonate with this dimension. Maybe we moved into a dimension where they're not so prevalent. Maybe they were more resonant where we were.
The little folk?
Yeah, the fairies or the...
Yeah, well, that's another school of thought.
Not just them, but, some of the phenomenon that... I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, no, I would like to be optimistic and say that we are evolving, and maybe that was a part, fairies needed to be a part of the getting us out of the dark ages, or
fairy
tales, and we've evolved past that. But I'd like to be that optimistic. It's tough for me, right? It's tough for me. The great filter.
Right.
We'll get into that later. But I don't know that we're evolving towards technology and not away from it. And I don't know that that's a good thing. I think technology is consuming us for, consuming our mind share, a bit of our consciousness. And I'm not sure, I don't know, I'm not completely sold, but I'm not sure it's a positive.
Right. So what if it's not positive or negative, but it just is evolution? What if we are evolving into the AI, artificial intelligence, expression as a species, as an evolutionary process? And I mean,
so we'll go there. Okay. So here's
that's my question.
So my truth on this is somewhat different. Right. So I'll just talk about the Great Filter. The Great Filter, created by Robin Hanson, tries to answer the question that Enrico Fermi had way back in the summer of '51 at Los Alamos, just a couple miles from here. There were some cartoons appearing in the New Yorker magazine because there were two things going on in Manhattan at the time. Trash cans were being stolen, and people were seeing flying saucers. So somebody in the New Yorker wrote a cartoon where the aliens were coming down and stealing the trash cans. Fermi loved it, right? Because it was a simple answer that solved two problems.
That's good.
So he really liked it. He really liked it. But it's now known as Fermi's paradox. At lunch one day, and he and a few others, and I think Teller was there, just slammed his hand down on the table and said, "But where are they? If the aliens are here, where are they?" And that's been known as Fermi's paradox. So Robin Hanson, who was
a good story.
Yeah. Robin was a economist. I forget his school, but he was an economist, and he postulated that either they don't exist or somebody's got their facts wrong. The story is wrong. The story being, life is prevalent. So we're not alone, right? Life happens more often than it doesn't. Lots of life, and down and down and down. And so he says that. So if you believe we are one of a kind, that's we're one of a kind. We're alone. We'll always be alone. Period. End of story. If we're not alone and we have life is prevalent and the universe is big and on down through this checklist, then there's something that's stopping us, and that will stop us or is stopping others from the concept of exploding life, which is life beyond your own planet. So exploding, lasting life, because everywhere we look, what Hansen says is everywhere we look, it's dead. No matter where we look in the universe, we got lots of new tech, but everything is dead. There's no plants on Mars, there's no civilization. Space is a vacuum. So there's no old Dyson spheres floating around. It's dead. So his postulate, which I happen to be a fan of, says that something along the path that we are currently on is a filter and stops life from achieving the exploding, lasting life. And so, you could think of that as technology. You could think of it as just time. It might just be a waiting game.
Ooh, I like that.
Dinosaurs were here, and now they're not. They didn't evolve. They didn't reach lasting life, and they got wiped out by a meteor. Okay? Eventually, that will happen. It will happen to us.
What if they were taken somewhere else? Would that count?
Okay, but where? So so you're saying there's another
some other
right
place.
So if
Parallel universe,
right,
maybe,
perfect.
Right?
So if we're in a 3D reality, Hansen's filter is valid.
Right.
That something stops life dead. It's time. Yeah, so it could be the Yellowstone caldera. It could be it could be a number of things, but life is fragile. And stuff happens, right? So it wipes us out. The other alternative is the filter is actually a fork. So as a civilization progresses, you can make a choice. You can go the way of, I think, technology, or you can go the way of, I'll call it consciousness. And I'm not sure if we've made that choice yet as a civilization. But it's an interesting thought experiment.
What if the choice is being made for us?
It's by...
Oh, I think that there are forces influencing our evolutionary process.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Like them or they? So is it a supreme being? Is it another consciousness off planet? Is another dimension?
Oh, I would. Again, boy, that's a dangerous trap to step in.
Well, it is,
I'm
but
afraid to say anything like that. But I feel that there are more evolved forces that are like the big brother to this planet.
Awesome.
Some are in alignment supporting us. This is just my feeling. I don't.
No,
really
I resonate
know,
with that
but
because that's the fork. That's the choice.
They're trying to help us evolve, and some have already gone through this stage of the evolutionary process. It's awkward and painful, but now they're very high beings, as an example, and they are flourishing, and they're helping little brother come through the portal or the birth canal, as it were, because we're still so young.
I like that idea.
Process, we're still being birthed.
I like that idea. We just talked about rebirthing and stuff.
Oh yeah, and here we go.
I love that idea, right? I love that idea that there is again in a multiverse and somebody that has already taken the fork to consciousness and not technology. Somebody made the right choice, and saying, okay, now how can we help these poor dumb bastards make the right choice? And so I always go back and I think through, okay, where maybe did we make the choice? Have we made the choice already, or is the choice still in front of us?
Can I?
Yeah, go.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah,
because I like what you say.
No.
I believe that the choice is being made with every inhale and exhale.
Okay.
And the choice is not in front of us. Some of it's still behind us because time doesn't exist. So we are moving in the geometry of this process. I also would feel that it's not right choice, wrong choice. It's just
choice.
No choice.
Well,
no, I don't want to go on record as saying that, but there is that probability. We're evolving. Like get over it, kind of like. But I don't believe collectively. I mean, as individuals, we can think we're making a choice, but collectively, we're moving along in a geometry, in a trajectory that we don't really have a lot of control of individually. It's like,
or understanding of.
Right, exactly.
We have no idea where this geometry leads.
So then you need to have individual tools to move gracefully in this trajectory, like awareness of self, love of self.
See, I love that. I love that viewpoint because I'm not trying to be dark about the filter and death, but when you explore those ideas, you just as you say, you realize every single thing I do every day, I can make a choice, and my choices matter. right? And so having knowledge of a particular thought experiment about a filter or a fork gives you a little more insight into the geometry you create as you, go through your existence.
So it's like every thought you have impacts your choice.
Right, the butterfly effect. You never know.
Right.
A butterfly flaps his wings in Japan and there's a hurricane, off the coast of Florida. You just never know how choices affect you.
Right. So each person then needs to be responsible for their own clarity and balance.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think getting back to the soup of electromagnetic interference, I think if people understood that the choices are simple if you can understand or see or feel the geometry that everything around you is moving in. It's almost like, okay, the world is the world is listening to country western, but I want to rock and roll. That's going to be a little bit of a conflict, or I want a disco, or it's just those two things don't always line up.
Right.
And so the choices we make, there's kind of a you have freedom of choice, but it's perhaps within a range of that geometry. What helps that geometry, or what sets that geometry back?
Interesting. And,
the flow. I mean, it's all about the flow. The universe is definitely flowing. A lot of people can feel that even more so as the veil thins, and you're either fighting it or you're flowing.
So, then there's this great wisdom about the river knows where it's going.
Right.
Yeah, and so don't try to hang on to the banks
Yeah.
of the river and resist it,
Yeah.
because that's what we learn at birth is resist this.
Yeah.
Whatever this is, it's scary.
Yeah.
But actually, the more conscious births that happen, which is more trending, as we evolve, more you see these amazing children being born. You have one of them.
I do.
I
have two of them.
Oh yes. Sorry. You absolutely have two of them. Excuse me. The river knows where it's going.
Yeah.
So the highest thought is that we surrender to the river.
Yeah.
And it will take us there, and
Yeah.
awareness along that path.
It's always nice to.
Yeah.
It's always nice to believe there's a river master somewhere, that knows the river, and
like a key master.
Exactly.
If
we're on the old paddle boat going down the Mississippi, it would be nice to believe it's not steering itself, right? That someone has made good choices, and maybe it's the Yeti that are helping, or the little people or the fairies they have made those choices. They just exist there, and maybe they're the ones helping guide us.
Mm-hmm. And so for us, an infinite wisdom would be to surrender to the river.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an old saying, I'm not sure how it applies, but it's so cutesy, I have to say it.
Okay, we want to hear it.
You never step into the same river twice. The river's always different, because it's always flowing, it's always changing, and so I think the geometry is also always flowing, always changing. The old.
Meaning like you never go backwards is what that's saying.
Yeah, it's never the same. Yeah, it's always what it is today. The river that is today was not yesterday.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And it won't be tomorrow's river.
No.
Yeah.
And you won't be that person.
And I won't be that person.
Unless we meet in the river last week.
So great ending to the Sasquatch story. And we'll call that a verse.
The river of the multiverse.
The river of the multiverse with Yeti as our river master. Very good.